What's up, everyone? This is BigPowner. I have managed to make the low life build feel a lot better without adding the super expensive uniques that pretty much every build is using. That's why, a single stat Watcher's Eye is starting like 40 plus exalts, um, and like two stats are like 2 to 5 mirrors. Pretty ridiculous prices. Honestly, they are really, really good for the build. The single stat Watcher's Eye is something that you're probably going to want to get eventually on the build, so expect, at some point, paying a ridiculous amount for a single stat on a Watcher's Eye. However, the way that I've made the build, it runs really well in mapping. I've managed to get the energy shield up to a pretty healthy place, 7664, and I still have, massively increased damage, um, which I could have more, but the build would not work as well. In order to make the build work well, I needed to get the energy shield to a place where, I'm not just dying to everything, because it doesn't matter if you have a shit ton of damage, you're going to be not enjoying the build if you're just dying to everything. The main issue for me was that the build was not getting enough restoration to energy shield. So we have options in our tree, but honestly, everything's pretty maximized in the tree. Um, but what I really felt like I was lacking is a combination of just basically the constant getting something back, because I have a lot of reduction and increase a reduction to the wait time for the start of the energy shield, and I also have a lot of increase to the recharge rate. So when it does get up, I'm recharged really fast. It doesn't take as long to get there, but at the same time, you know, there's a lot of small stuff that hits us when we're playing, and if you don't have something that's constantly giving you energy shield back to a decent degree, you wind up taking damage and then you have to pull back, and you're not going to be clearing maps efficiently that way. And for myself, I want a build that is actually going to work well, that I'm not going to be wasting a bunch of time, that every single time I get hit, I have to back off of my progression through the map, and I gotta sit and I gotta wait over and over and over again. That's a shitty build to me. So, if you're looking for someone that's just going to be like, look, I made the most possible damage in this build that's absolutely shitty to play, this isn't the guide. If you want a build that's actually going to work well, you want to do the low life because you want more damage, but you aren't ready to, spend 50 exalts on 50 plus exalts on a Watcher's Eye, 10 exalts on boots, so on and so forth. This is the guide for you. I am going to say this is a lot higher investment than, even as it is, it's a lot higher investment than the original build. If you're looking for the best bang for the buck, 100% go take the advice from the original build. The simple fact is, the items on this build are going to cost a lot more. All of them, your rare items, especially your unique items, the really sought after stuff like the Watcher's Eye, you know, like I said, 40, 50 exalts minimum. You're probably actually not even getting one for 40 exalts. You're probably going to spend more like 45 to 50, because I've been watching the market. Um, so that being said, I've managed to make the build work without getting a clarity Watcher's Eye. It works really well. I can still obviously kill Sirius. It's not as easy as the other build because I had a higher total HP energy shield combination. So in that regards, it's still weaker than the other build. However, it has enough defenses that I don't feel like it's playing like shit. And since I have fixed the regeneration, getting energy shield back issue through a very unique way, we do gain energy shield back through the chest. We get 2%, but 2% by itself is not really a lot. We also have spell leech in the build, but the biggest boost that I could find is kind of a weird thing for the build, Vile Reinvigoration. Since we needed more regeneration when we were running through the map, this works out perfectly. We get 2% regeneration, we still get 6% max energy shield. It's probably something a lot of people are not thinking of for this build because the percentage damage over time. However, that 2% regeneration, um, it's basically just going to be 2% regeneration all of the time, makes it so that your constant regeneration from spell leech plus the regeneration from your chest, your base regeneration, and this regeneration makes it a lot more playable. It makes it feel a lot better. It makes it so that there's not many times where I really have to pull back in maps. I can smoothly clear maps fast, which that is a really important thing to a build. Unless you're only doing it for, like Sears killing, which then there's absolutely no point for going really high investment on a build like this. So, go spend 6 exalts and make the original build and, don't invest a ton in it and it'll smash Sears easily. That's all that you want. If you really like the build and you plan to invest in a lot in it, you plan to min-max it, this is the first step, the first place. This is your goal to start with. Um, Items have obviously changed. There's only 2 uniques that are going to be required for this build. Um, Ivory Tower and the Prism Guardian. These two are absolutely 100% necessary, but they're also super, super cheap. This 6 linked is 3x. This, I don't even know if it costs an X. I don't even know if it costs Chaos. It's going to be super cheap, like way less than an Exalt. So super cheap items. Where you're going to wind up spending your currency on getting this build to a playable place is your rares, because you need really good rares for this build to work well. In order for me to get up to the place where I'm at, this is taking forever to regen because I took stuff off. Where's the health flask? Um, okay. Ah. R. Okay. So where I've gotten this, in order to get it to this place where it feels good to me, tree is pretty important. You're going to need the levels. At lower levels, it's not going to feel as good. It's not going to be tied together as good. Doing your initial branching, you're going to need the cluster jewels because they're going to help you out. If you've been playing the original build and you already have the cluster jewels, most of the stuff is going to stay the same. So you won't have to change those. So all the cluster jewels besides this one have not changed. If you do wind up getting the Watcher's Eye, you will just wind up swapping this here, which then will put you back in a place where you're not going to have 2% of your regeneration, which is a big chunk of your constant regeneration for mapping, but you're going to have like over 10,000 energy shield. So that's a pretty good trade-off. That being said, and you'll have 2 more points. But to get more rejuvenation, it's pretty expensive. If we wind up going with Zealot's Oath, we have to start focusing on regeneration on our gear, which is taking up a lot more itemization slots, which I just don't think that investing points in regeneration is the best optimization of points, because remember, the whole reason why we're switching to low life is to have more damage. Obviously, survivability is something that we have to get to a place where it's going to work, but if we wind up sacrificing all of our gain damage to make our regeneration nice and to to make our energy shield try to match our previous life that we were able to get super easy and cheaply, then we've kind of just shot ourselves in the foot, and there was no reason for us switching over in the first place, because we've just spent a bunch more to just have the exact same result. So like I said, the way it is right now, slightly less total energy shield HP versus just now the energy shield here. The thing that I will say about that is that the damage is a lot more. Obviously, I added Zealotry, Wrath. We do have Discipline. The energy shield will actually be higher because my Discipline isn't fully leveled. I didn't just buy one. And because I haven't been playing that much, it's not fully leveled yet. So I will have, I think I have like 4 or 5 levels to gain on it. 5 levels, so I'll probably be closer to 8K when it's finished being leveled up. So that being said, let's go ahead and play it, and then you can see how it plays. I have a pretty juicy map. Yeah, 133% quantity. Yeah, it's just a big map to. I guess we can throw some Beyond on it. If I was actually farming, I wouldn't be doing that because I'm just doing the farming method that I showed you guys, which is just basically quick clearing. I also wouldn't be playing this map because this isn't a good map for that.
My mana is spent.
I get my. The other thing that you will notice is I am using two energy shield flasks. So you see how my energy shield is just constantly coming back up. Kind of got stuck there. As I'm taking damage, it is just constantly rejuvenating, which is pretty important because if I didn't have a bunch of regeneration, I would not be able to survive / do that. I would be sitting back, which this is a pretty dangerous map, so I can't fully just go balls deep into it right there, but I can be pretty ballsy. I definitely ain't a glass cannon no more. Someone was like, oh, you don't need it, you can just use skill and avoid everything. It's like, alright, so you can avoid those ground AoEs that just pop up, you can avoid all the little shocks that these guys are shooting out, you're able to micromanage against all those little lightning shocks. Alright, yeah, get out of here, dude. Plus point and click damage. That is another thing that is completely unavoidable, which makes it so that you absolutely have to have enough HP to be able to do hard content efficiently. Hey, what did I miss over here? Oh, main temple map. Not a big deal, but I mean, it's something. This is an absolutely terrible map, as I said, for the delirium farming, because it goes back and forth. This map is like impossible to complete fully inside of the delirium, and it's just kind of a nightmare to navigate through. Let's go. I actually really don't like this this thing because it like multicasts. Like multicasts the multicast movement skills, which is not very tactical. Triple gas. It's funny. Obviously this guy's just gonna instantly die. Yeah. And then he's gonna hide for a minute, and then he's gonna come back out and instantly die again. Because that shit would have happened on the other build too. You're instantly dead. Hey! Synthy map! Okay, so as you can see, the build is definitely not squishy anymore. And, you know, I'm kind of letting you guys see the regeneration that those combined things give you, which is really, really important. Like I said, you know, it probably looks like a weird thing, like, oh, there's damage on time over there. 2% regeneration constantly is an absolutely massive, a massive thing to be able to gain. The only thing that's comparable to it on the small cluster jewels is the 3% that you can gain, but you have to be stationary, which that makes it basically completely useless because you have to be stationary. That could be something you could viably like swap in maybe for like the Cirrus fight. Um, like I take damage, I step away from the fight, and then I'll regenerate faster. But if you're in that situation anyways, where you can just sit there, you can just sit there a little bit longer, which, so I think that has absolutely no place in this build. You could be like, well, it's 3% versus 2%. Yeah, but the 2% I don't have to stop to get advantage of it. Which, stopping, first of all, you're not progressing through the map. So you have to be away from stuff that's attacking you to be stopped. And you're not making progress through the map. So I don't think that there's any better option. Plus, it still gives you 6% max energy shield. The trade-off that I had to make, I have lost some of my mana structuring it like this, but the damage is still a lot more than it was before. So, goal completed. The build is playable. It has a lot more damage, and it doesn't feel like shit mapping. So this is what I'm going to recommend. I'm going to go over a few other things that are kind of absolute musts for the build. A second mana flask. We got rid of the other mana flask. There's a lot of other things that people might be going for, but I'm going to 100% say that the double mana flasking is a really, 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 really good thing to be doing. We're still using the Wise Oak. My resistances are still messed up because obviously I plan to continue finishing this build. Previously I had all my resistances, lined up. So I got the full advantage of the Wise Oak, getting 10% damage reduction from all of them and having my 15% penetration from this, which is absolutely optimal if you can get it in an end game goal. That is really sweet and makes that a super, super powerful flask. However, I'm not finished with the build, so I'm not going to do that again when I'm halfway through the build. So right now my resistances are like all over the place. All right, so we only have two choices of chests that are going to work with the low life build. And those two choices are either the Ivory Tower or Chevron's Wraps. The reason why I have chosen the Ivory Tower over the Chevron's Wraps is we wind up losing way too much potential mana. I've got mine perfect rolled on the 100 mana. You still lose a lot of money, still lose a lot of mana coming from our choice for the dual HP ES build, which once again, it's like you gotta give up. You're gonna wind up giving up some of your stuff in order to make the swap. With the Cloak of Defiance, obviously we have a much higher possible mana, 150, 50% more mana. Total, I think I lost like 600 mana in this conversion, and I've bought new rares. I've spent more money on my gear, and the gear is more expensive because more people are wanting the same stats that you want because this is a popular build. That's why I'm saying this is still a higher investment build. It's still going to cost you a lot more. And the thing that you should note is most of my most expensive items, best items from the previous build are on this build outside of my shield. Obviously the shield doesn't cost us like anything. The chest is extremely cheap also, like 3EX for a 6 link, which, at that price, I would suggest just getting the 6 link. Um, but, I kept my expensive wand. I have, my expensive gloves because they didn't have any undesirable stat, and trying to find a, tier 1, tier 1, tier 1, tier 2, tier 2. That's going to be hard to do. An upgrade past this is going to be really, really expensive. I still have these because they're pretty good for the build. The life doesn't really help me that much. I do get 30% of the HP converted to energy shield, but it's not really ideal. Um, we do get with this a percentage of our reserved HP as extra energy, max energy shield. However, that's not something that you want to focus on. Um, the weak point of the Ivory Tower that you are going to have to deal with the entire time you're playing the build is you're vulnerable to chaos damage. Why are you vulnerable to chaos damage? Everything runs off of our mana in this build. Your skill, your brand takes a ton of mana to cast. Your defensive skill, the Arcane Cloak, takes a ton of mana, which we don't want to give this up because it is absolutely massively powerful. Now, with the Ivory Tower, chaos damage is taken from our mana before our life, which if it gets past it, we're instantly going to die because, I have 108 life. So if chaos damage gets past my mana, I am just instantly going to die. That is the weakness between the Ivory Tower versus the Chevrons. The reason why I haven't chosen the Chevrons is because I lose a bunch of energy shield. When I swap these two things, I lose 500 ES and I lose more of my damage, which, like I said, if we give up too much of our damage, we're kind of just right back in a place where now my build's weaker defensively and I haven't really gained any damage. Why did I do this? So chevrons would be a lot smoother for, protecting your life because it doesn't bypass your energy shield. All damage is taken out of your energy shield, which would make it smoother to play. This could be an option if you do have the Watcher's Eye that's adding 18% of your mana as extra energy shield. However, then that portion that you're going to be having added, because you're going to have less base mana, is going to be smaller. So, you're going to be increasing your energy shield, but then decreasing it because you're losing mana. So I like the Ivory Tower in this build better, but in order to prevent ourselves from dying, we really have to be staying on top of making sure that we have mana. Back to my case and point for 2 mana flasks. Very specific things that we need on these. If you can just buy them, I'm going to suggest that you just try to buy them because you probably buy these cheap. 2 things. I want remove bleeds on this. I also have, opted. This is probably not going to be realistic for most people, but I've got, corrupted blood on my jewel, just to make things run a little bit smoother. Honestly, it's not exactly completely required unless you're experiencing a glitch, which has been going around, which I have experienced a few times right now, where the removes bleeding isn't removing bleeding, which sucks. So there's that, but removes bleeding you need on something. I would put that on one of your flasks. The other thing is immunity to curses. You want the immunity to curses on your constant mana. This makes it so that we're immune to curses, which makes the build better for mapping because we can run maps with any curses on them. And since we always are going to have that mana flask up, we're always going to be immune to curses, which, because, it's basically just extra mana regeneration. Which is really nice because, if we're able to maintain where our mana is and it's never completely topped off, but it's close to top, then that makes it so that we are able to run through a map, curse immune, and still having it so that if we take a big hit, our energy shield is still going to give us a shield over 5,000 and, also give us a big boost to our bonus added damage. And then also if we take chaos damage, we've got a big pool of mana that is going to be protecting our life. But in order to do this, when you're trying to keep up brands, you can see with just that up, I'm curse immune right now because you can see that little tally. But
My
if
mana is
I'm
spent.
if I get low, I can pop it up like that. Do you see how quickly I was able to restore my mana? And because we get so many flash charges, well, we are just murdering a bunch of stuff, you'll always be able to be just spamming mana flasks, spamming both these flasks, which makes it so that if you're paying attention to this, if you're keeping your mana up, the chaos damage that you're protecting yourself from is basically your lowest threat. So if you get good at managing the 2 mana flasks back and forth between each other, chaos damage actually becomes, a nice thing to be hitting you because it's basically like I have, 7,600 HP on top of, my 7,600 energy shield. And, if you're taking 2 different types of hits, the 2 different pools, obviously some of our damage is being taken already our from our mana pool, like all general damage, not as much as before. With our Cloak of Defiance, we had 40% of that damage because we had the Mind Over Matter, and then another 10% of damage is taken from mana before life. So that was a bigger defensive boost. Um, but it's still pretty nice. But you really just have to stay on top of managing your mana. The other thing that I like about this is one of the biggest things that sucks about going into a map is every time you go into a map, you don't have your brands and they're huge costs. So how is it that I make that quicker? I immediately do this and then I get my brands up extremely quickly by spamming between the two, and then I can start it and I'm basically at full. And then as soon as I kill stuff, I'm back to having my instant rejuvenation. This makes it so that starting the map doesn't take as long. I'm not sitting there like, I got one brand up. I gotta wait for my mana to recharge. I got two brands up. I gotta wait for my mana. Which also sucks for things like alvas. Like I've been completely skipping alvas encounters because every time you go in there, you start over with brands. Well, now I'm able to quickly build my brands up, so it's not as big of a disadvantage, a slow kind of like start where you're really vulnerable, because when you don't have your brands, you are really vulnerable. You're really apt to catch deaths. So that is another really big advantage of this. So 100% I'm going to say that these are a requirement for the build to run well, both defensively and smoothly. Um, I ain't gonna do a big boss kill for this because, you've seen it on a build that has less damage and it just insta pops everything. So, um, yeah, it's just beating a dead horse. It's not gonna be any faster than instantly killing. You can't get any faster. And that was kind of a point I have made to a few people is, having more damage is cool, but there's only certain places that you're even gonna notice a difference. So, if you're just going for usability, once again, if you're going for bang for the buck, go with the original build. It's cheaper, it's easier to play, it's more durable, and it's easier to play, and it's a lot cheaper. But if you just want to get the absolute most out of the build, this is a good place to start, and then you will be able to work, save up. But I would still start with a pretty nice amount of currency, or I would buy the items for the build before you actually make the conversion to low life, and you're gonna want really nice items. I'll go over some of that stuff. I went with the dual mod, percent mana and number mana and percent HP with tier 1 energy shield crafted on energy shield, so I get 24% max energy shield, with a tier 1 max mana, which is qualitied. um, so big gains right there, and that's where I'm picking up some of my resistances too, more mana regeneration. Obviously I had this is a super strong ring, tier 1 perfect roll mana, tier 1 double perfect roll dual mod shock, with assassin's mark. I wish it was a tier 12, but you know the point is in order for the build to run like this, you have to have really nice rolls. This is my filler slot and probably my worst piece of gear, and my requirement for this was I had to have at least 61 strength, and this is something you're going to have to be aware of because we pick up no strength in our tree, and you require 109 strength for this. So somewhere on your build you're going to have to pick up 61 strength, which means a tier 1 strength roll, which I had to divine to get it to at least, you have to get it to at least 52 before you add the attribute modifier. An important thing with this would be to get intelligence on it, because that's going to, give you the double dipping, which this was pretty expensive and it has one bad stat on it. And getting something even nicer than this is going to be even more expensive, because I'm obviously 100% requiring that tier 1 mana, because we have to get mana, and we have basically this, which makes it so that we can have this low life combination, because this is the only way that we can get discipline, wrath, and zealotry into our life pool by itself. We're running 5 auras. We're going to have those 3 auras inside of our Archon Kite Shield, and then we're going to have precision and where are they? Precision and clarity. So we're gonna have those coming out of our mana, which doesn't take up as much even at the max level. Um, but those are two things that I would definitely keep. You could also get get ball clarity, um, but in the eventuality of getting a Watcher's Eye. And I will say this, the other option for this build, if you think the defenses are good enough, you could go for even more damage instead of going for a really expensive Watcher's Eye with the clarity. Because if you go for the clarity, that one stat will cost you 40, 50 EX. Two stats, so one more good stat on it, is putting you into 2+ mirror range. So, if you're like, holy shit, I don't want to spend 2 to 5 mirrors on a Watcher's Eye with two stats, that's really crazy because I have bought triple stat Watcher's Eyes for builds in the past with all perfect rolls for less than 5 mirrors. So that is really crazy that that's how high two stat Watcher's Eyes are. But if you get your gear nice enough and you're at a place like where I'm at, where you're like, this is pretty nice, I'm getting close to 8,000 energy shield, and you're not feeling the need for more defenses, you could go for a really nice multi-stat um, Wrath one. You could go for percent penetration, and then you could go with something else. We have a lot of choices because we have discipline, we have precision, we have clarity. There's a lot of other stuff that you could go for. So you could actually go for more damage as another option for it, which obviously, if you're going for multiple stats on those, because those are also still popular things, it's probably still going to be expensive, but it's not going to be as expensive as the one that has the clarity mod. But that's because the clarity mod by itself is so strong. 18% of our mana. I'm talking about a base energy shield increase of like 1600 at 300% increase. That's going to put me like 11, 12k energy shield, like pretty crazy energy shield. So, in that defensive strength, I mean, that's like taking big hits from serious level stuff. That's getting into the range of being more tanky than the other build was, which, that's really our goal in min-maxing and investing a lot, is to be far superior to what we started from, which if you invest hundreds of exalts into something, it should be better, or that build is just bad. Just plain and simple. It is. Um, which, we have those really big options, so that is something to consider. Maybe you're not ready for that and you just want to get a cheaper one to add more damage when you get to a place where all your gear looks nice. I do have a little bit of space where I can gain more stuff. I don't want to lose my onslaughts. This is the only place I can get the onslaught. The 20% movement, attack, and cast speed is a pretty big deal. The reason why is because I absolutely hate to run without portal for mapping, because constantly switching those two things is a huge pain in the ass. So I have removed my attack speed from my shield charge. However, with the onslaught up, it still goes really fast. Obviously, having more cast speed is going to give us, you know, better damage output, better everything. So we want to have that extra movement speed. That's really important to me, to have a place that I'm gaining onslaught, and this is the best place to gain it. So in order for me to get the resistances, I need a tier 1 intelligence, mana, and then obviously now I want a big energy shield roll. That's going to be really hard for me to find that. When I find it, I will get it, but that's going to be expensive, and that's the type of upgrades that you're looking at. Is in order to have something that's working this well, all of your slots, you're going to need probably at least four really, really good rolls on every single piece of gear to have a build that is this strong, which that's something you need to consider. Why am I talking so much about this? Because I don't want people to get into this build and be like, oh, he's only got 2 cheap unique items and look at how good it's smashing stuff. I'm trying to show you how good my gear is and the level of the rolls that are already on these. You're talking about 4 or 5 tier 1, tier 2 stats on all of my gear nearly. um, at least 4 tier 1, tier 2s on every single piece of gear. So that is kind of my point, is, the build is really strong now, but I'm not in cheap gear. It might look like, oh, he doesn't have very much invested. It's all rare gear. This is a popular build. All these stats are sought after, and my gear is really nice. So that is the point I'm trying to make. This is not a cheap build. This is not a 200 EX build yet, but add Watcher's Eye, add, better boots. I'm probably not going to go for the 10EX ones. Probably my boots are going to cost more because I'm I'm int stacking, so I don't want to lose 55 intelligence and tier 1 mana, because that will actually be less mana than the, the 10 exalt boot option for this. I'd actually be losing stats. So I'm looking for a rare item that's better than a 10 exalt unique item. So that gives you the kind of idea of where my next upgrades are, like what the range of their upgrade cost is going to be. Um, so yeah, if you like the build, I will make a path of building for how it is now. And I still have all my gear from the old build. I should have probably taken and made a POB before I re-rolled this, but I'm kind of really spontaneous and I didn't really think of that. But I have all the gear and all I have to use is some Orbs of Regrets and I can remake it. Um, Currently, until I release the next guide, you will be able to follow my build. It's just BigPowner1 is my account. I always leave it open so people can look at stuff. The thing that you need to note is I change a lot of stuff on my builds. Um, and until I release a finished guide, things are not going to be optimal when I am making a build. So I always recommend that people, if you don't know what you're looking for, don't try to mirror gear on a build that I haven't said is done, and always take the advice that is written on the guide, um, because even when you min max a build, sometimes you have some weird stuff on the build that there's a specific reason, and because of those specific reasons, you have some weird shit on the build that just isn't optimal. Like in this case, I had to have tier 1 physical, and my other two biggest things were I wanted the tier 1 mana, the tier 1 energy shield, um, and I needed a little bit more resistance. So that's kind of what this item is. It's probably like my worst item because it's low rolled intelligence. Obviously, optimal would have been me getting two tier 1s, also having tier 1 mana, also having tier 1 energy shield, and, like energy shield regen or something like that, or, being able to craft that on with that resistance roll already being on there. I couldn't even find that. I couldn't even find what I wanted, so this was the best thing that I could find on the market. Um, which sometimes that's the case for items. You can't buy stuff that ain't there to buy. Um, but to give you an idea, multiple exalts on every single item, um, at the very least. So I would say probably 9, I would say like 20, probably like 30 exalts minimum will get you into gear somewhat like this with using catalysts and stuff like that. Probably at least 30 exalts is what you're looking at to start this build. Um, Previous build, like 5, 6 exalts, you're crushing serious on A8. This build probably at least like 30 exalts. And once again, all of the stuff that's takes time to get, or you have to go looking for it or buy it. Um, all of that stuff has pretty much stayed the same outside of one small socket jewel. If you get ahead of me before I make the next guide and you jump out and buy that Watcher's Eye, the Watcher's Eye is going to go right here. The thing that you do have to note is if you don't go for the defensive one and you wind up losing this regen, you're not going to have the same regen that you're seeing in the video. So you're going to kind of have to weigh that. You will have 2 extra points if you're at the same level. I'm at 94, so you'll have 2 points to put somewhere. But the truth is you can't really get to regeneration or mana leech for 2 points. You get another node here for regeneration that you could branch off with. Why did I go with utmost intelligence? Because I'm stacking intelligence. I don't have a ton, but that wound up being the absolute best increase to energy shield and mana overall that I could get. It is a very powerful mod because for every 2 intelligence, we wind up getting 1 mana. For every 5 intelligence, we get 1% energy shield. Another option that you can go for is right down here. If you don't want to go for a jewel cluster that is giving you more regeneration, you could go down here, but this is 5 points, which 5 points is a pretty big deal. But this would give you a lot of extra energy shield leech. You have another energy shield recovery up here. But once again, you're talking 5 points to reach here. You could go through here for more energy shield and then only 4 points to there, but you're talking about a lot of points. You could wind up stacking this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This would give you more base energy shield, but the thing is because we're getting energy shield from here for our mana, giving up mana, which, if you wind up putting this many points here, it's got to come out of somewhere. And this is giving us mana and energy shield, and our mana is giving us energy shield. So that's why this is not really the best option. Um, the other thing that I would like you to note is I have switched to Whispers of Doom because this build is, we're going for really big damage. I have gone to dual curse. Why is that? Because there's two things that I want that give me the most damage. And what are those two things? It's the Assassin's Mark on hit because it gives us the base crit. The other thing that gives us the most damage is the conductivity, which I have not done on a ring. And why is that? Because I don't need conductivity to clear shit in maps, plain and simple. And it would be really, really hard for me to get all of the stuff that I need. I basically would have to find the ring, you know. And it's going to be a level 8 versus being a level 21. Could be level 22 because I've got the +1 on my wand, but a lot more reduction to their lightning resistance. It also gives them extra chance to be shocked. This is basically a big burst mechanic, which I can spam cheaply. Um, on bosses, it's gonna give them basically a double debuff because they're gonna get the debuff from the Wave of Conviction, so negative 25% to the resistances. And then on top of that, they're getting a negative 45, which, if I get the level 21 version, it will be negative 46. So you're talking about a negative 91% to their resistances for when I hit a boss or something big, like you run into, you're running super juice maps with those bosses pop up. 91%, you hit them with this, and they are now taking 91% more damage, because that's how resistance reduction works. It's the same thing when Katava nerfs you down and you have negative 50 resistance and you take a hit of 100 damage. It's now 150 because you're negative 50 and the resistances. Same thing. So that's how I have that set up. You do need to notice that I'm using the curse on hit. So when the skill hits them, it curses them. And you have to have 2 curses in order to do this because we don't want to be sacrificing our base crit, because we really need those crit stats in order to be getting the really big hits. We also need the Assassin's Mark to be able to make it so that, our points are kind of stretched. Um, we have the chance for the really big hits through the crit node inside of the tree, which I'm still using, which gives us a 5% chance to deal double damage. You want to talk about a big hit? That is a big hit. 1 out of 20 hits if we're doing the critical strike chance. The big thing that I don't think anyone has really noticed, I did make the choice to go for this build. The other thing that people have kind of completely missed is with the dual life build, when you have HP, you have a lot more options for your chest, which give you some min-max opportunities for that build that this build does not have. Which, what are those big things that we could do? We could do a dual mod chest, and you could go for base spell crit on your chest and the explodes, which would be 1 prefix, 1 suffix, which would make it so you could still get like a 550 ES regalia with, this would be an expensive item, but I'm trying to let you guys know that if you want more damage on the build, going low life is not the only way. This is going to have the highest damage potential, which if that's what you care about, this is a really good choice of build to go for, if assuming that you can afford it. But there are expensive options that you could do on the other build that are going to be unique to that build, simply because we require a specific shield and 1 of 2 specific armors. Anyways, I hope that this has been informing, and I hope that this helps you to make the decision on whether it's worth it for you to go to low life. And if you do go to it, I hope you have a realistic idea of what the cost is going to be to get it to a place where you're going to be able to play it like this. Thanks for watching. Peace.